Welcome to episode 75 of the Coast to Coast AFL podcast with Nick and Blaze. I am Blaze, your host, and this week one of the finals has been and gone. We've got two teams moving up into the prelims, four teams moving on into the semis, and two teams going home with their season being over. We cover all of that, plus a secondary retiree, because we've already mentioned it, of an AFL hero. And also, the Tassie Devils get a little bit of news. So we will touch on that as well. But before we do that, let's jump straight in. How are you doing, Mr. Sarek?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. It was a very busy week for me. Doing a lot of things, but yeah, then just led into the finals football. I was very excited for that to get started. So I was a bit, um, um, no, I was pretty free for most of it, so it was really good. The only one that I only half sort of watched was the Crows and the Collingwoods.
Yes.
Crows and the Collingwoods. I was about to say Hawthorn. Yeah, I was half watching that. Watch a bit more on replay, just to write some notes about it. But everything else I watched pretty intently and pretty closely. And as I said, big week in WA, obviously, with the build-up, with the excitement, and then to just have that game, which was still exciting, still really good, but man, sort of half crushed a state. But yeah, but in still football related news. Also got a bit more merch. They gave me a voucher for my birthday week and birthday month,
Oh, yeah.
and I bought some gear which just came today. Got
Very
the
nice.
PSC Pride,
Oh,
which
fancy.
I'm pretty cool. Yeah, it's a glitter, which is I just thought it was cool, and I had to get it in women's because I couldn't find any of the men's, but
You got
the
you got the prison bars,
got the
Guernsey.
prison bars out. Yeah. So it's the women's version because as I said it was only for $15.
Nothing
It
wrong with
was
that.
medium too, and I was like, oh no, it was just like the fit because I was like, it's medium. It's a tiny bit tight around the shoulders, but fits down enough. So yeah, that was pretty good. Bargs, absolute bargs.
My week wasn't too bad as well. I did manage to catch pretty much all of the finals games. I did actually miss the Giants comeback in the third quarter against Hawthorn, but I did see the fourth quarter where the Hawks fought back to keep their lead. Um, Otherwise, I did a lot of streaming over the week. I've been playing through Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. I completed the main story, got all the collectibles and stuff that I need to, and I've started the DLC, which came out on Friday, which has been a lot of fun. I'll probably, depending on time, I might actually do a little bit more of that tonight as we're recording this, or even tomorrow as it's, or today. Quote unquote, days are confusing. Monday or Tuesday, essentially. Otherwise, this week is actually a very busy week for me. It's my birthday on Friday. I turned 27. I am getting
Ooh,
old, but not old enough because I know you're much older.
didn't realize it was 27. I thought you
um,
were still 25-ish,
no,
so
I'm gonna be
that's news to
27.
me.
So I've
Yeah.
got plans for that. I have mentioned it prior, but on Friday I will be doing a cosplay stream with my birthday twin, a friend of mine who was also happened to be born same day, same year, roughly the same time. So we're basically birthday twins. We're gonna do that together. I think late, so it's like 8 p.m., 9 p.m. kind of start. So it's gonna be a late stream, but it's gonna be a lot of fun. We're looking forward to it. And then I've got a dinner Saturday night. But I'm also going to see my cousins during the day because it was her birthday. It's her birthday. The weekend just gone. Because it was Father's Day. Happy Father's Day, of course, to all of the fathers out there too. And then Sunday morning and Monday morning, I had to move my day off of work for this. My team at HSP, Hammer and Shield Productions, will be hosting a Marvel Rivals tournament for North America and Europe with a 100k prize pool. So we're very, very excited to put our name on this and put our little style and flair on it. It does mean that because we're doing it for NA and Europe, we have to be up very early. Start of the stream is at
Yeah.
4:30 a.m. AEST, so 2:30 a.m. Perth time. So that's going to be,
Mm.
especially when I'm going out the night
Yeah.
before, and fair chance I will be having a couple of bevies. We'll see how
Mm.
we go.
yeah, our good friend, well, my good friend and a decent friend of Blazers, Epic Tiffy.
Yes.
She's having to deal with that. She's, I'm not sure if it's for HSB, it's for someone that's state based,
No,
and
she's not
uh,
involved in ours, but it could be. I've definitely seen some of the stuff that she's getting involved in, which is very cool.
yeah, but it's like, man, they just like expect you to be awake. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, we want you to be a part of it. We want you to be a part of it. And it's like, oh, what time you have to wake up? Oh, 2:30. It shouldn't be any problem. And any Americans, you try and get like a, oh, can we do like a, can you do like in the morning for your time? You know, maybe at 7 o'clock or squeeze it in something. And like, no, no, too busy, too busy. Just Americans and Victorians, two time
Excuse
zone hogs.
me.
Americans and Victoria. I said what I said.
All right, fine. I will take that. I'll take that.
Americans are worse. Americans are worse than
Oh,
Victorians.
100%.
Yeah.
There are no arguments for me on that one. All right. Now that we've caught up, let's jump into the footy news. We have one bit of news first from the Tassie Devils with ex-Tiger. He played 16 games for us. Jeromey Webberley named as coach of the inaugural Tasmanian Devils men's VFL side.
Yeah, so it's very exciting because I think just every little step that's approaching the inclusion, fingers crossed still, as I said, still got some things to sort out, but the Tevi Devils, at least into the VFL competition, that looks to be very set.
Yes.
And they've got, I guess, I guess we'll call this a bit of a tester coach, wouldn't you say? Good because it's Tasmanian. I think you sort of need that connection. Has been in the competition before, but I think it's just a bit unknown. Apparently, he has been working as an assistant for a little while. If I've read this correctly, 2021.
Yeah, that tracks, I think.
Yeah. So, yeah, as I said, obviously, I think it's yeah, pretty good, pretty exciting to see them into the VFL. As I said, even if the men's side for some reason buckled and crack, it would be good to at least see the start of it, the foundation. Um, as I said, it's just as I said, a lot of it's going to be dictated on how they negotiate that stadium, which
Agreed.
is who knows when that's going to fix. It's probably going to ramp up in the off season. It will probably be the most talked about thing aside from random gassing up of Victorian teams, probably Carlton
At the
coming
moment,
back.
it's looking more like St Kilda because they're throwing out the war chest.
Maybe, yeah, St Kilda getting all the free agents, getting all the trades, losing a few play too. It's very weird. It's going to be
Yeah, they
revolving doors down at Arden. No, not
yeah,
Arden.
they've
Um,
delisted two so far.
mm,
They obviously Jeremy Webster retired, so technically a retiree and a delisting.
mm,
Marcus Windhager is currently on the trade table. Apparently, he's being eyed by other clubs.
yeah,
But they are bringing in TDK, Silvani, and it looks like Lecalier from GWS as well. So they're showing up a backline at
yeah,
least to compensate.
yeah, exactly. And
But yeah,
yeah, so
this is very exciting for Tasmania, and they did originally were going to try the original. I believe the original plan was actually for 2027 for them to join the VFL, but I think they pushed up ahead just to try and like fast track and keep an eye. And I believe they're also going to try and utilize delisted, most recent delisted players and Tasmanian existing Tasmanian players playing in the other VFL teams or in other VFL systems across the AFL teams. Just to try and like get a bit of a head start in terms of having a decent system in
yeah.
place.
I think if it is going to be messy, it's very important to get that foundation going. Plus, as we know, it's sort of that thing where it's like, well, we've already got a VFL team. You might as well let us play. That sort of thing. I think it's just keeping the iron hot for the AFL so they don't get cold feet. I know a lot of it's got to do with governments and
Yeah,
that side of thing, but yeah, as I said, for what will be a complicated process, this is a very good sign for those keen on that Tasmania side, or at least
absolutely.
just to see Tasmanian football, because again, you'll still be able to go to like your local league and support in that regard. So
Mm,
that'll be good at the very
absolutely.
least.
And yeah, and I agree. Like, Jeremy could end up being like their inaugural AFL coach if like what they
Mm.
want to get out of the VFL system works and they're able to compete fairly well in that system.
Yeah, or even if
No,
they do what a lot of other ones do, where it's like, oh well, we'll get a like a Hinkley or a Horse type of figure for a couple of years just to steady the ship,
yeah,
take the big
you would think
losses,
they would be looking
and
for an
then
experienced coach to at least be the inaugural leader.
yeah. Well, it's very, very harsh if you get a first-time coach like Guy McKenna, because then you just ruin your record straight away, you know. But
Yeah, true. But
it is what it
honestly,
is.
I'm not opposed to Horse being their inaugural coach. I thought he did very well at Sydney for the long time that he was there. Apart from
I mean, yeah,
never
that's
actually
hard to
getting a
argue.
premiership, but you know.
Yeah, he did.
Oh, no, sorry,
He
he
got
got 1.
2011.
That's right.
Yeah,
No, he got
11 or
12.
12?
12.
12,
11
yeah.
was
11 was
Geelong.
St Kilda. Geelong, that's what I meant.
And
Sorry,
should have
thanks,
been
man.
St Kilda, but that ended up being Collingwood. But
And could have
that's
been St Kilda, yeah.
besides the point. Speaking of Collingwood, shall we jump
Yeah.
over into our first game?
Yeah, let's, because there's a lot to unpack in this finals.
All
But
right, so
let's
as
go.
everyone knows, we went back over to the Adelaide Oval for basically an end of season rematch between the Crows and the Magpies, and with a 24-point margin, the Collingwood won out 11-13, 79 to 8-7, 55.
Yeah, and it's such a weird game because there's some eerily similarities to the last game where I guess basically Collingwood absolutely dominated territories and inside 50s. But obviously Adelaide won that first game, whereas this one I thought it was sort of similar, but obviously Collingwood didn't get that territory dominance, but they did control a lot of the play, and I think you know even though they had technically more territory dominance the game before, this game was like almost a masterclass in around the ground pressure, and I
Yeah.
think was more of what they wanted to happen. As I said, basically they just forced Adelaide into very rushed, dumped kicks and got a lot of easy interception, especially in that deep back line, but also around the ground. It sort of shut all of Adelaide's avenues for goals, and despite a fairly even halftime score, the waves of aggression and spot melees by Adelaide, I reckon, was sort of showing signs that they were a bit frustrated in not being able to play the game on their terms, or even just on the terms of a team that finished in the minor premiers. I don't know how you feel, because again, I was only lightly watching, but I did feel anxious about Adelaide once they started. Like the spot fines, the keen elbow, which I think was before the halftime.
Yeah, that one
And there
was.
was another incident, wasn't there?
Yeah, there were a couple of minor incidents throughout the game. But honestly,
Hmm,
it wasn't even really that caught my eye the most. It was the fact that Collingwood's defense shored up like
yeah.
this game compared to when they last fought a couple of weeks ago. And like to Darcy Moore's credit, he was on fire in that first half.
Oh, absolutely. I'll talk about him a bit more, but as I said, it was just again a team restricted is what I would say about Adelaide because they were nowhere near um, being able to do what they want. And as you mentioned, it started in the matchups. I mean, obviously, it can be Darcy Moore getting a lot of those intercepts, and he just not only was it the intercepts, he was on Fogarty. He did basically nothing for the
Mm.
entire match, so that was a big tick there. While I won't say Mason Cox himself, Cox being able to be that ruck forward actually allowed Darcy Cameron to drift back more often. And he took a few really good intercept marks, or when he wasn't taking marks, he was still putting pressure on. I think, if anything, like this Darcy Cameron game reminded me a lot about Max Gawn.
Oh yeah.
Uh, just knowing the opportunities that are there to drift back and help his team defensively. It just added a lot to the overall structure to a team that had been pretty much humiliated the last few weeks defensively. Like they were not good. So as I said, complete tenor out there. And Jamie Elliott, the last one, he proved a bit too wily for Worrell. And as I said, it just also allowed like a mix of options up forward and let the midfielders get scoring options such as Sidebottom and Goey. The fact that players like Elliott and all that were able to be so threatening and spread deep. As I said, it seemed like at times Adelaide were sucked back because they were afraid. But then when they did, it sort of opened the door for those wing-like midfielders.
Yeah,
Um,
they were
I was,
just like making great use of the space the Adelaide Oval has, and it really
mm,
just disrupted Adelaide's structure from the get go.
yeah, because I said for as constricted as Adelaide looked, the Pies just looked like they had a bit more time and space, and I think it was due to the um, inside midfield. Because there wasn't that many scores from stoppages. By memory, it was about 27 to 30 something. Not exciting enough to write. But with the Magpies midfield, we're just elite. Putting pressure on ball carrier and the next in chain, keeping territory even while still having the superior ball use and inside 50 efficiency. It made Adelaide look lethargic. They had far less uncontested possession. They could not find a target to kick to and just couldn't offer much inside 50 either. I did think on the ground they were okay. But as I said, it was just picking up the pill and dumping it. And when you compare the main centre group of Dawson, Berry, Saligo, Peatling, they were pretty awful. And I would even say that the best of that group, which was maybe Berry, maybe, I would say they would probably be worse than the worst Collingwood inside midfielder of that night, which is very hard to pick. Maybe you pick, I don't know, because it would be Dacos to go maybe Crisp, and that would be very harsh.
Yeah, it's like it's a
Pendlebury.
stretch in that midfield right now to really kind of
But as I said, they were
pick
just like
someone.
fully outclassed because, as I said, they all had fantastic games. I think I looked at the CBA and it was not Chris Pendlebury, and he was just like, yeah, when Pendlebury's the worst in that inside midfield mix. Um, yeah, as I said, it just showed how good they were in the center,
Yeah, agreed.
and complementing that, their backup ball use was good as well. So it wasn't just that they were getting the intercepts; they could rebound that into fairly solid movement. Probably didn't capitalize as much as we want. I think that's still the biggest question mark is, you know, can Collingwood convert enough if the intercepts dry up? But if they're putting pressure on this, it's, it's fair to say maybe the intercepts just don't dry up. Maybe they will just grind out those type of wins.
Yeah, it seems to be definitely the Collingwood style at the moment to just be not necessarily like a very fast, very threatening team, although they can play fast, but they
Mm.
love to just grind out a team. And that's how Adelaide played earlier this season. They were a bit of a grinder
Yeah,
team. Like GWS were the same as well, and now it's just
yeah,
like tables are flipped in some instances.
probably more GWS. I'll say Adelaide's closer to the Collingwood rebound. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Like, but then Adelaide could get solid defensively with their tolls. But I don't think this matchup was sort of where they could do that. And then, as I said, with the pressure on, it was like, well, they're not getting the intercepts themselves because I think what was the intercept count? 78 to 64. So, you know, Adelaide probably just got their normal amount of intercepts where Collingwood probably got a few more and, just narrowly beat out in the turnover count. As I said, but it was more the forward half pressure and the fact that just Adelaide couldn't move the ball at all from the back half or not to anything exciting anyway.
I think a lot of this could have also come down to the fact that finals is also just a different beast entirely. A lot of the players playing for the Crows at the moment have very little finals experience compared to Collingwood, where they literally just won a premiership 2 years ago.
Yeah, I think it's sort of hard because I think the few players, like as I said, Jordan Dawson, I guess would he have had finals experience? Maybe not actually. I guess
Yeah,
that's not
they made
guaranteed.
finals in 22, didn't they?
Sydney. Yeah, I just didn't know if Dawson was a regular back then. I can't quite remember. Um,
I'd have
but
to go back and check. Which of these
yeah.
players have finals
Anyway,
experience?
yeah, it doesn't really matter.
Apart
But
from like the obvious ones, like your Tex, your Rory Lairds,
yeah,
your
exactly.
the older
Brody Smith.
mainstays. Yeah,
Yeah. So, yeah. But as I said, I think it was just I don't know. I just
you,
felt like it
Neil Bullen.
was.
Sorry.
Mm, yeah. Well, true. I feel like it was a team a bit figured out, and they. I feel like, yeah, as I said, they're just the first options were very poor for a team that did win the minor premiership. You don't really see that lack of composure, and as I said, I think it does raise a few question marks. You never and we'll talk about it more in the previews,
Mm.
but it does make you think that Adelaide's a bit vulnerable for going out in straight sets, and I thought that they were solid enough to where it's like, well, they're not a perfect team, but I think that they were not finals proof, but you know what I mean? Like I thought that their game plan would be all right for finals, enough variation in attack, their midfield isn't great, but sometimes if it's a bit sloppy, maybe you just need the territory and the pressure. But nah, they were just fairly comprehensively beaten this one.
Yeah, it's not what any of us really expected. Like we do rate the fact that they have had a very very big upswing compared to last season. They've done a
Mm,
lot of great work in terms of
yeah.
evolving this team over this season. Um,
Mm.
but yeah, the fact that they were still just comprehensively beaten almost right off the bat was it kind of like stuns you a little.
Yeah, and I think it's a thing where it's like, well, if Adelaide did go out in straight sets, you would still say it's a good season from them.
Yeah, 100%.
But I think it's like for the next season onwards, it's like, for every time Adelaide looked like they had things going their way, I guess it's that last few seasons, where Adelaide looked to be getting into the finals. You had that controversial point, they miss out. Last year, obviously a few injuries, but they were everyone thought they were red hot, like GWS were primed up this year, fell apart, couldn't get anything going, and now I think straight sets would just be a tough pill to swallow, but it's definitely possible if they play like this. But at the same time, it is also a good time to reflect on the season, reflect on what you did well, and prime yourself up for a good contest against a plucky Hawks side a bit later on.
Yeah, we will touch on that obviously when we do our previews. And we'll also touch on the whole GWS stuff as well when we get to their game coming up a bit later. But let's jump over to the individuals, and I'm going to start with an old timer for the Pies, being Steel Sidebottom. He was excellent this game. He kicked 3 goals from 15 disposals, 5 contest possessions, 4 marks, 2 clearances, 6 score involvements, 2 tackles, 10 pressure acts, 4 ground ball gets, and 2 1%ers. Jordan De Goey was outstanding in the midfield, slotting a goal from 26 touches, 19 of them effective, equating to 73.1% efficiency, 9 contest possessions, 3 marks, 3 inside 50, 6 clearances, 5 score involvements, 7 tackles, 16 pressure acts, and 332 meters gained. And coast to coast champion Big Billy Frampton was immense in defense, finishing with 13 disposals, 7 contest possessions, 10 intercepts, 4 marks, 2 inside 50s, 2 score involvements, 12 1%ers, and 11 spoils. Over on the Crows side of things, Alex Neil-Bullen in his 200th game was solid. He collected 17 touches, 12 of them effective, equating to 70.6% efficiency, 5 contest possessions, 5 marks, 6 inside 50s, 4 score involvements, 7 tackles, 22 pressure acts, and 445 meters gained. And Rory Laird played a solid inside game as well, finishing with 24 touches, 18 of them effective, equating to 75% efficiency, 17 contest possessions, 6 intercepts, 6 clearances, 3 score involvements, 4 tackles, 17 pressure acts, and 14 ground ball gets. On the no injuries, thankfully, which is very good to see. But on the MRO side of things, Mark Keane was fined $6,250. This was his 6th offense, by the way. Probably should have been
Mm.
suspended for striking
Yeah,
Steel
if it was the
Sidebottom.
regular season, like there's no reason that wasn't intentional.
Yeah,
Like you're just flicking a fist out in the air, and it's all of a sudden, oh, it's a football act that was careless. Nah, it's
no,
just
this is
it's the way they phrase it.
the
So
fact
he
that this
went
was a
with the
fine is
week.
the luck of the Irish.
Yeah, you could say that.
And then the other one is Jordan De Goey was fined $2,000 for rough conduct against Josh Worrell. But that wraps up
Yeah. Also
our
a bit
first
line
game.
ball, but
Yeah, there
definitely a lot more
wasn't
likely to.
too much into it, but yeah, there was definitely a lot of like spot fires and things like that in this
Yeah.
game.
Yeah,
Uh,
exactly.
all right, let's jump over
Yeah, you
to
are.
our second game. And we're heading over to the MCG, of course, a Friday night blockbuster between Geelong and the Brisbane Lions. And with a 38-point margin, Geelong win out 16-16, 112 to 11-8, 74.
The mini hoodoo is lifted and in quite strong fashion. The regular Cats just beat Brisbane with solid work around the ground, restricting a normally rich Lions midfield. And if you looked at stoppages and forward half score, which was 50 and 61 apiece in favour of, 50 and 61 both for Geelong. That's our stoppage score and forward half score. Uh, you would think that Geelong were oh sorry, I have completely butchered that.
Try that again.
Yeah, basically, nah, don't worry about it. It's just basically Geelong, despite being the team you don't always associate with it, had the forward half type press going, which Brisbane actually did sort of give it against them the time before. So it was a bit of I don't know whether you want to call it just desserts or giving back what you got given, but yeah, as I said, it was just very interesting because, while there was a lot of elements of the Cats' fast running game, being defensive but not that defensive, I will say their tall defenders were actually really good. Brisbane, they managed to intercept quite well, restricting Brisbane to only 8 set shots, two of which came from the double swing, which started off with the soft as butter call from the goal square favouring Cam Rayner.
Mm-hmm.
Side note, the first goal was soft, but it's like, what are you doing a bump like that, like 100 meters away from the ball in the goal square? You know what I mean? Like, you're asking for trouble. Like, yeah, the umpire shouldn't have called it, but it was pretty dumb.
Yeah.
And then the action after that, I think the second one, 100% a free.
Second one was 100% there.
Yeah, exactly. So, just end side note. Again, unlucky to be called. I think the umpire should let it go. I don't think it's the worst umpire decision ever. Back to the game. McCluggage shut down by Mullen, who also got his first goal, and it was a goal to remember. So shout outs to O'Shane Mullen.
Yes.
Without any toll threats for Brisbane, Geelong were able to play SDK and Blitzarves a lot more loose around the ground, getting their full impact. So even though I thought Fort had an absolutely fantastic game, great name all night, it wasn't taken full advantage of on the ground level because Geelong just put so much pressure on ground level with their big bodies, and they just maured the Lions. Finally for the Cats, they did what they could do what they could do best, stuff the handballs and just take the distance because of their strong marking ability. Inside 50, Jeremy Cameron had just one less mark inside 50 than the entirety of the Lions, as the Cats won that count 21-6. So Cameron did 5 marks inside 50 for those bad at math. And at the end of the day, it was just too many passengers in the forward half of the ground for the Lions, and just enough wins in the Cats midfield to make Brisbane look as weak as anything.
Mm-hmm.
There were only very few times where the Cats didn't look in complete control, and Brisbane have to go and win against another team who like scoring from the areas where they just gave up too much score in this match, which is the Gold Coast in the Q Clash.
Yeah, we're going to get a
It's going to be
finals
very
Q Clash for the very
interesting.
first time. It's actually really
Yeah.
exciting.
And yeah, as I said, it's going to be very interesting because, yeah, as I said, Brisbane, and I know it's a one-off game, but they just look so mediocre. Like I won't say that they were the worst at stoppage this week, but I think that's got to be Adelaide. But geez, they weren't that far off the next worst. They were very, I don't know. I just say tepid's the word. As I said, obviously couldn't ever get some connection with the forward half and the midfield. Their outside players all just had games. Maybe, as I said, I think the All Australian, I've completely blanked. Had an okay game. Zach Bailey.
Yes.
But yeah, there wasn't really too much on the outside for them. And yeah, as I said, as for Geelong, it was just such a balanced game. As I said, they obviously had that strength in the forward half, but their defense was very solid. And as I said, they just moved the ball on the inside, on the outside. They were solid, just as solid kicking from the defensive half as they were at stoppages. So, as I said, it is a very strong performance by them.
Yeah.
And I think, yeah, as I said, I don't think Brisbane will be that concerned because again, they have had a few performances like this and recovered. But I think this is just the game that Geelong's saying, hey, I know we had an easy back half of the schedule, but we are still playing near exactly how we want to play as a team.
Yeah, I agree. Geelong are still just as threatening as they have pretty much been for most of the season. I do find it really interesting that Blitzhouse, despite being 34 years of age, is basically playing like he's 29. Like that game was easily one of his best. Like that's the best I've ever seen him play, honestly.
I think it's played a few better, but I think it's just that I think he just feel you know what I mean? It's like I think this was a game where every position he was in seemed so deliberate.
Mm.
You know what I mean? Like when they needed him to win a clearance, like as I said, when he was playing either as a second sorry, as a big body midfield or in the ruck, he was able to get a few center clearances and around the ground. He was able to link up in chains, you're able to just give him a handball. Like it's not the worst player to be doing that to. And as I said, offensively, he just linked up quite well. I think he go through his stats specifically, so I won't, say that. But yeah. Oh, do you? Yeah,
I
you
do.
do. So,
I do. But I also do want to just
yeah.
briefly mention Fort as well. Like I think since taking over as
Mm,
the number one ruck position over the Big O, like
yeah.
he's put on some really solid performances against some really tough rocks.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just so interesting because I said, like, Brisbane still could make the grand final from here.
Oh yeah.
So it's going to be an interesting one. It's like, well, if he does come back, like I said, like, I think he could play. You know what I mean? I think they're just slow bringing him back because Fort's in very good form. Um, I know I'd need to actually check the injury list to see whether he
He's
will
not
play
injured.
finals.
He's been
But
playing the VFL, which bad news for the Brisbane Lions. So they were beaten by Box Hill by like less than a goal
yeah,
over the weekend. So that's pretty rough for them. So
yeah, exactly.
Brisbane's VFL side is out of the finals, but as far as I'm aware, the Big O isn't injured and he's actually been playing fairly solidly.
Yeah, so as I said, we'll wait and see whether he comes back in because yeah, he's been very up and down. I think he just needs a preseason in him. I think they'll get him back, but
Yeah, I think
while he
the
has
injury
been
that he
here,
suffered end of last season didn't do him any favors in terms of being prepared for this season.
yeah, exactly. So while it's hot, keep the fort secured.
Yeah, well, that's a good way to put it. But yeah, like Geelong look fantastic. Move on to the prelim. Um,
Mm,
who and they will face obviously the winner of Adelaide and Hawthorn. So that'll be a
mm,
really interesting matchup. Depending on who wins out of that one. But until we find out the results of that, let's move on to the individuals, starting with Ollie Dempsey. He was elite for Geelong, kicking 3 goals from 25 disposals, 8 contested possessions, 4 intercepts, 6 marks, 3 inside 50s, 3 clearances, 9 score involvements, 3 tackles, 14 pressure acts, and 375 meters gained. Max Holmes in his 100th game was excellent with movement, kicking 1-1 from 23 touches, 12 contested possessions, 5 marks, 8 inside 50s, 5 clearances, 5 score involvements, 6 tackles, 24 pressure acts, 10 grab ball gets, 31 percenters, and 630 meters gained. And then veteran, as we had mentioned just before, Mark Blitzarves was solid around the ground, getting 26 hitouts, 4 of them to advantage, and kicking a goal from 20 disposals, 16 of them effective, equating to 80% efficiency, 9 contested possessions, 5 marks, 4 inside 50, 6 clearances, 9 score involvements, 5 tackles, 14 pressure acts, 4 1 percenters, and 4 spoils. On the Brisbane side of things, Josh Dunkley was good with pressure, kicking 1-1 from 30 touches, 9 contest possessions, 5 marks, 4 inside 50s, 5 clearances, 5 score involvements, 11 tackles, 30 pressure acts, 3 1%ers, and 3 spoils as well. And then Darcy Fort also did well around the ground, getting 52 hitouts. I think that's one of his highest tallies, actually. 9 of them to advantage, and 15 disposals, 8 contest possessions, 4 marks, 4 clearances, 4 score involvements, 5 tackles, 18 pressure acts, 7 1%ers, and 6 spoils. Unfortunately, an injury to co-captain Lockie Neal with a calf, which I believe he did a little after halftime, takes him out of the entire finals series. He will not be playing the rest of the season, so it's very unfortunate for him. And on the MRO side of things, Tom Atkins was fined $1,875 for contact with an umpire.
Yeah, because it's going to be very interesting because one of the things that they have done, and they might have to do for the rest of the final series, how long it goes for them, because the number one player that they've put in to sort of replace that is Zach Bailey. And he did all right in this game, but you know what I mean? It's sort of hard because it does shift away from that outside game that Brisbane do like to balance up. So I think it's going to be very interesting what that specifically does to them because they've obviously got enough depth. But it does lose their shape when they have Lockie Neal. And as we sort of saw in this game, allows them to tag McCluggage a bit harder. Like that move comes off a lot better. And I think one of the reasons why they chose to tag Neal, who we normally just say, not tag Neal, tag McCluggage, is like normally say, Neal's untaggable. But you still probably have a player running. It's like, well, you know what I mean? I think Geelong identified that there may be a bit of a weak link if Neal's a bit underdone coming into finals. It is a shame that the worst case scenario came up, but you do have to give credit to Geelong for thinking that the Brisbane's midfield of all things was an area of target. That's just a veterans finals coach doing the right thing.
Yeah, because like we've kind of been talking about it on and off with Brisbane, is that like their forward line has always kind of been the question mark since Danaher retired, but their forward line has actually looked fairly solid. It's now looking at like their midfield is the big question mark, and especially with Neal going out, that doesn't make it any easier for them going into the Q clash.
I'll still say the forward line's the problem. I mean, like they really didn't have. Like I said, if you take away,
to be fair, they also haven't had Hipwood like at all, so that probably doesn't help either.
Yeah, but if you take the 2 gift goals by Rayner, like technically Lyman is the only multiple goal kicker, and he just had an okay game. Was okay early, did nothing else for the rest of it. So yeah, Charlie Cameron got a goal early, went unsighted.
Yeah, that sounds like
Logan
Cameron.
Morris. Yeah, well, as I said, it's just so interesting, and it's like, what goals do you make now that the season's on the line? Because you're like, well, you played Cameron, you might find Stark and whatever, but yeah, as I said, you never want to say like I wouldn't drop him, to be honest. I think it's just the list.
I've been saying it all season long that he's done nothing. He's just he's had a couple of good games, but for the most part, he's done nothing at all.
Oh, it's been a below average small forward year, like not just through good small forwards, just for league standards, but.
True.
You know what I mean? It's like, well, who are they going to put in? You know what I mean? Like, if they had a kid really pushing up, I think they would have played by now.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, so it's like, I think they're just committed to him. So it's how do you find those targets and shots when set shots are being so restricted? And, I think that's the other thing where Neal will hurt because, as I mentioned, like, then you take Zach Bailey out, who normally is good at deciding when to go forward, when to push up, get goals. He can, not always accurate, mind you. He's had a lot of 0 and 4s in his career, but he is very good at finding the goals, and now he has to probably play a bit more midfield time.
Yeah, it definitely changes Brisbane's dynamic a little. But
yeah,
Fagan has been able to, throw the magnets around a few times and come up with some magic. So who knows what will be in store for the Suns. But let's jump over to our next game. Heading up to NG Stadium where the Giants hosted Hawthorn, and despite a very strong third quarter and a very early fourth quarter comeback by the Giants, with a 19-point margin. Hawthorn went out, getting their first win over the last 7 encounters against the Giants up there, with 16-11, 107 to 13-10, 88.
Yeah, and I think as I didn't really mention it in the last game as much as I thought I would, which is why I'm a bit weird by my first sentence. But it's sort of weird, like defensive roles in these finals so far with the first 3 games have been very important, despite only one game being actually defensive, which was, of course, Adelaide Collingwood.
Mm-hmm.
But I think no other game exemplifies how you can still be defensively solid, but be able to cough up a big score because, as I said, the Giants, they're not normally a territory or inside 50 winning team, but they manage 72 inside 50s to Hawthorn's 56, managed to win the clearances. And yet, for Hawthorn, 70% of the game, it looked really comfortable. GWS were absolutely nixed in their ball movement. The Orange Tsunami just kicked 0-5 from back half ball movement as their run and carry absolutely fell down due to the immense tackling pressure of Hawthorn, which made this contest very scrappy, as GWS did try to turn this into an all contest. We said that GWS, if they don't think they're going to get the game off ball movement, they will just try and lock things down. And I think their pressure was very good. The problem, Hawthorn was kicking so good that none of it mattered. They were lights out in front of goal. They kicked 17 extra points when compared to their X score in the first quarter. So no matter what pressure they were putting on the Hawks, scoring just came easily, and that's why Hawks got 7-1 in that first quarter to, I think it was 2 goals. It didn't help matters when Darcy Jones, who was by far the best outside connector for the Giants, came off with a knee injury after looking like the most exciting outside player. However, in that third quarter, after looking pretty dismal, especially in that forward line, the Giants were able to find a different way forward. They worked straight out of stoppages to claw back a 42-point deficit midway into the third quarter.
Mm-hmm.
And by the start of the fourth, they were a goal. Well, sorry, they weren't a goal up. They were tied. I misread the score thing. And I think Kelly, Callaghan, and Green, Kelly coming off as a sub, Callaghan and Green, both immense all day. But that third quarter was absolutely instrumental in swinging the game around. And honestly, was it Hogan who kicked the first goal of the fourth from a string of handball?
I think so.
It was something like that.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I think it was Hogan.
I think at that point, and I guess it's hard for you to say because you didn't see that third quarter, but it really felt like the Giants were just going to come home and like, I know it sounds amazing for a team that was so easily put away, but I was like, well, I reckon the Hawthorns have lost control of this game. I don't think they'll come back into it. And as soon as I thought that, old mate Mitchell, he was like, nah. Like, yeah, they kicked the first goal, but we're going to get our game plan going. They did. They went into control of the ball mode for the last quarter. And it was fitting that they did get a couple of goals to get them over the line. It was more to do with good forward pressure than any particular dominations. A couple of goals from RBL Chol doing some craftier things than we're sort of used to him seeing. And, of course, the tackle by Mitch Lewis, getting Himmelberg, holding the ball. He was probably that one weak link in the Giants' defense. Taylor was pretty solid. But, as I said, Himmelberg just got caught out a few times. Emmett felt like he was getting targeted a bit. And yeah, it was just getting him over the line, you know. As I said, and we'll talk about it in the next game, there was one team that held the ball up when they didn't need to, but this was a good example of knowing when to hold up, you know. It's like the Giants, they're coming in with fast pace from the stoppage, so we don't even need to attack because, you know, that just creates another stoppage. All we need to do is make sure that when we get the ball, we're not just kicking along to stoppages. We're going to we're going to make them work to let them turn the ball over. They were able to control it with good running, and that is how the game ended out. As I said, as for the Giants, their midfield did really, really well. Their back half was just okay at sometimes, porous at others. But it was their forward line. 72 entries for just 7 marks inside 50, or a rate of 9.7 chance for an inside 50 to result in a mark. It was the round the ground pressure that led to this, but the Giants will absolutely rue the fact that their tall forward line was such a point of difference in such a big inside 50 differential. And you know what I mean? Like, it was a big Bucks forward line up against a big Bucks defense. And, I've been critical saying, there's only so much defense by bringing in this players. But specifically for this match, I don't think if you had all the players that were in that match, Hawthorn would have won as convincingly as they did.
This is the kind of game that Battle and Barras were brought in for. And they were easily worth the money for Hawthorn in this case. They were phenomenal. That entire back six, back seven was outstanding in their defense. Apart from obviously that third quarter, I did end up watching a highlight of that, thankfully.
That wasn't even their back six. That was the Hawthorn's midfield.
Oh yeah, no, that was a little bit of the Hawthorn. A little bit of the midfield going to sleep. That's a normal thing.
Yeah,
but like,
yeah, it's Hawthorn's biggest issue. But I mean, they're 8th. They're allowed to have problems.
Yeah, true.
It's just Hawthorn are really good at masking those problems, and it got them a finals win.
Hawthorn have been able to think on the fly. Essentially, they've been able to adapt pretty well in most cases.
And we've seen fly coach before, and thinking on a fly is very good.
It's something that that a lot of coaches, especially the experienced coaches, have learned to do over the years, because it's something you have to know how to do to be a good coach. And the fact that Sam Mitchell, even though he's only been a head coach for like only a couple of years, he's learned so much so quickly. And it's like you can see that in just the way that this game alone was played.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just it's a very much, it just seems like a mature finals hardened coached game from a team that isn't. Obviously they did get their finals wins last year. But as I said, not quite as, obviously the Western Bulldogs last year was a bit of a soft serve for Hawthorn. Obviously getting beaten in the prelim semis by Port.
Yep.
Yeah, but this game I think is probably one where they're like, you know what? This, from here on in, we're advancing. Because as I said, it's just such a good structure. And as I said, I don't know. I'm not quite as hot as other people as Hawthorn for their long-term prospects. I think GWS have been a bit flaky, and I think this game sort of exemplified some of their flakiness. But yeah, as I said, as for Hawthorn, they are what they are. They're a very good team. Their midfield isn't the strongest. Their forward line isn't on paper the strongest, but they know how to work things. And if you can do that, all it takes is just a couple of games. And who knows?
Yeah. And all right, before I go into the individuals, is it irony or is it just coincidence that they have to go to Adelaide to play the Crows?
Yeah, well, as I said, it's sort of one of those things where, you might be a bit of shades of last year or whatnot have you, but I think that's what you're referring to. I'm not
correct. That is exactly what I'm referring to.
But yeah, as I said, I think, I think it's a bit different. As I said, last year Hawthorn had that sort of arrogance to them. And I think they sort of needed that.
Like however many games in a row to get there?
Yeah, they won that many games in a row. There were the new team on the block, and now they've been pumped with that Hollywood Hawthorn, and they still had their fire stuff. Like Ginnivan was very fun to watch. Watson struggled a bit, but when he did kick his goal, he sort of lifted the team a bit. But I feel like this is a team that also knows how to do that head-on thing, and I don't think there's much difference. I think I think it's just Mitchell always knew where he was headed with the direction of this team. This is just the second year Hawks. This feels like Mitchell's according to plan sort of thing. But I do think that they will have confidence heading into the game, but I don't think it will be as arrogant as sort of last year. You know, which I don't think was that bad a thing, but it definitely felt like they did get ahead of themselves a bit.
Oh yeah, agreed. All right, let's jump over to the individuals now, and I'm going to start with Connor McDonald. I thought he was very lethal around the ground, kicking 3-1 from 17 disposals, 12 of them effective, equating to 70.6% efficiency, 3 marks, 3 inside 50, 7 score involvements, 12 pressure acts, and 343 metres gained. Jarman Impey was efficient with movement, finishing with 28 touches, 3 contested possessions, so he had a lot of free ball. 7 marks, 8 inside 50s, 2 clearances, a behind, 6 score involvements, 2 tackles, 16 pressure strikes, 4 1%ers, 4 spoils, and 960 metres gained. And Mabior Chol was very good with pressure, kicking 2-1 from 9 disposals, 7 of them effective, equating to 77.8% efficiency, 7 contested possessions, 6 hitouts, 2 clearances, 5 score involvements, 7 tackles with 3 of them inside 50, 15 pressure acts, 6 scramble gets, 4 1%ers, and 4 spoils. He was, for a tall, he was doing surprisingly a lot of groundwork.
Yeah. And that's the thing, and I think that's a good reason you brought him up, because as I said, I actually think his work in the centre bounce when he was taking those pinch hit rucks were probably just as important as those 2 late goals, because again, I think it also set the tone of what you wanted to do as a team. Like when Mabior Chol, it's not like he can never be a pressure player. He is normally pretty good, but he can sort of just drift out of games, but this is just one of those ones where he was locked on from the get-go, knew what he wanted to do, and knew the pressure. It wasn't like he was recklessly going in there, giving away free kicks as some big ruck do when they do try and put the pressure on. He was just very disciplined, but very ferocious. And I thought he played a fantastic game too.
Good. On the Giants side of things, veteran Stephen Cornelio was solid with pressure, collecting 14 touches, 5 contested possessions, 4 inside 50s, 4 clearances, 2 score involvements, 9 tackles, and 22 pressure acts. And Tom Green was elite in the middle, finishing with 34 disposals, 28 of them effective, equating to 82.4% efficiency, 20 contested possessions, 7 inside 50s, 12 clearances, 7 score involvements, 5 tackles, 24 pressure acts, 11 ground ball gets, and 322 metres gained. On the injury side of things, as you had mentioned, Darcy Jones went out with a knee injury. It's confirmed to be an ACL, his second knee reconstruction, sadly. So he will be out for majority of the 2026 season as well with recovery. But we're hoping for a very fast and smooth recovery, because he's an incredible player for being so young.
Yeah. Because as I said, it was like I'm blanking. He had breakout year last year. Brent Daniels.
Yes.
Breakout year as a small forward that's primarily outside. Long-term injury stuffed around this year. And for Darcy Jones to then just join him, it's just very unlucky for a team that
it's rough for the Giants.
Linked up.
And we because we know we have we know that they have such elite talent, and it's just stuck on the injury list.
Yeah, exactly. And as I said, their depth is just okay. Obviously, with the team that rose so fast, they're still sort of figuring it out. But I think they do have enough there. It's just, as I said, they don't want too many injuries like this.
Agreed. And then on the MRO side of things, Lloyd Meek was fine.
There's the one, just interrupting. There's the injury we worked out before that was announced with Kalshadia.
Yes. Kalshadia also went off. I don't actually have it written down what it was. Do you know what it was?
Yeah. It was a hamstring strain. Okay. So it was probably thought just to be, it's a bit of a niggle, we'll, sub you out. We seem to be doing well. But it turns out to be a low hamstring grade, and he's definitely going to miss this week and probably going to miss the prelim if they make it.
It's rough for them because he has been performing well since coming back from his major injury. But hopefully, as we've just talked about, Mitchell knows how to adapt. They should be okay without him because they were fine without him for quite a while when he was out anyway, especially now that they have Lewis back as well.
And maybe subbing him off precautionally may make him get back for that.
They might have actually saved him from making a worse injury.
Yeah, so fingers crossed, because as I said, I do love Kalshadia. He's a very exciting forward, but at least Chol looks to be playing well because, as I said, he went a bit more forward afterwards and kicked 2 very important goals.
Yeah. Very solid from him. It's something that we that we were trying to get him to do for a long time at Richmond, is to be able to play both the ruck forward role. He could only end up playing
even
one
the
end for a
Suns
while, and the Suns kind of the same issue. But Sam Mitchell's gotten the best out of him so far, so all the more power to him. On the MRO side of things, Lloyd Meek was fined $1,000 for striking Kieran Briggs. James Sicily was fined $1,000 for contact with an umpire, and Callum Brown was fined $1,000 for striking James Worpel.
Oh, well, yeah, as I said, it was a very mixed bag for a lot of the Giants in the forward line, as said. It's just so weird that all those tolls, just none of them seem to really fire at all. And I know, obviously, the back six of Hawthorn are obviously very good, but it's just so weird, all this talk into trying to make this all the talk about, is this one of the best forward lines in the competition? And they didn't really come all that close. So it does show how ball movement and efficiency, as well as just the ability to generate inside 50, which was a problem that never got fixed for GWS this season. We'll break down that a bit if we ever go to the stats breakdown, whether that's this year or next year, next preseason, I should say. But yeah, as I said, it's a bit of a disappointing end to what was a pretty okay year at times.
Yeah, it's I mean, an upside to the Giants, they got a home final, which is something that in the times that they have made finals, I haven't really seen all that much of. So it's good experience for New South Wales.
I mean, it is, but they made a prelim 2 years ago, and it was like, it's so exciting, but
they also made a grand final in 2019. We all know what happened then.
Yeah, but I'm talking about this recent Giants. I think you got to separate the what do you call it? The Kingsley Giants from the one before Kingsley.
What's his face? It's been so long now, I can't remember.
Yeah, I know. It feels like it hasn't been that. Leon Cameron.
Yes, that's right.
But yeah, so as I said, it's as I said, 40-point comeback, 40-point comeback. You lose 2 games. You get a 40-point comeback yourself, and you still lose. So, as I said, it's just not been good since that surprise prelim. Probably for either team, as I said, Carlton on the other side, injured to buggery last year, didn't get a finals win, and out the 8 this year. So maybe it's a cursed prelim. Who knows?
Could be. But let's go over to our last game now. Probably the most exciting game of the entirety of week 1. We're heading over
exciting games of the year.
True, absolutely. Over at Optus Stadium, where Fremantle hosted the Gold Coast Suns, and with a 1-point margin, a miracle kick from retiring veteran, one of the last inaugural Gold Coast Suns players, David Swallow, the Suns went out 11-14-80 to 12-7-79.
If you wrote this script, you would be rejected for being too cliche. But as you said, in the dying seconds of the game, it was a mark to David Swallow, which ended up being the point of his career. I put brackets so far. He's not got too many points to kick a more important behind.
I mean, it's still entirely feasible he plays this week and next week. Who knows? He could hit 250 in a prelim.
Yeah. So, as I said, it was a point that guaranteed the continuation of his career. And unfortunately, on the flip side, means that Fife is set off into the sunsets and the Dockers fans leave Optus Stadium bitterly disappointed. Oops, sorry.
Are you good?
Before that, though, there were 3 quarters of decent Suns dominance. And it was both their defensive efforts, preventing numerous entries from becoming set shots, as well as their fantastic stoppage work, which gave them a comfortable lead for most of the night. As I said, it was actually a fantastic midfield battle both ways. It was a case of the Dockers, again, not quite defending from stoppage, but doing really well offensively for stoppage. And it meant that Sarong, Brayshaw, Anderson, Miller, Rao, Davies, and probably add Young into the mix too. He had I know he wasn't quite in the centre as much, but he had a few decent around the ground stoppages as well. None of those players just put a foot wrong. Racked up ground balls, clearances, and score involvements. This was a game dictated by the middle. For both teams, however, what was the struggle was getting their tall players involved, as the tall defenders on both sides had a generally fairly good games. I'd say probably the outlier to that was unfortunately Cox,
Yes.
who, as well as letting King kick 5, it should have been probably a 2-goal 3 or 3-goal 2 game, but he unfortunately kicked 5 behind straight by memory. Yeah, and obviously giving away that final free kick for holding Swallow, it led to the best passage of good leading and inside 50 marking for the entire night. Probably Isaiah Dudley in the third quarter. Apart from that, they just both teams had trouble finding those good targets inside 50. However, I will say this. I think the Gold Coast didn't mind that the marking game was sort of taken away for both teams because they had an absolutely fantastic hard ground ball game with a lot of fast handballing. Whilst for Freo, it looked like they couldn't create multiple avenues from their ball movement. They looked very stagnant, very one-directional, and if it wasn't for the marking presence up forwards that eventually found their way late, they really just looked milk toast. Like, they did not look very potent at all until that final quarter when the game sort of went a bit more into their directions. And I think that was just sort of it, because when Jai Farah kicked the first goal of that last quarter, it just looked like it was going to be a shut door case. But then the Suns starting to stagnate with their own movement. Went a bit too heavy on the dumps, allow Pierce to get into the game with the easy marks and rebounding opportunities as he tore the game open in the last quarter. And when Jackson took a long, strong mark to tie the game late, I should say, it seemed like Freo were just going to get another win, much like the last game of these two teams, by late clutch forward play. But their poor stoppages hurt them once again. As I mentioned, the final play happened inside 50 clearance to the forward 50. David Swallow collect. David Swallow collect, dropped the ball, but held on to, and the rest is history. So at the end of the day, it was a very exciting finish and a pretty good game overall. As much as Freo did look intipid, it was interesting to see how the dominated first. But if you take it the whole, it was just the unevenly good Freo versus a skittish but exciting Suns. And for a team that has never been in the finals before, they did take a very short amount of time to register their first finals win. And they just, as much as, I'm like, oh, the Suns, I don't think they're the most complete or comprehensive team. They looked all right, solid, dropped off a bit late. Sorry, what I meant is they looked solid early in the year, looked to drop off a bit, but, this is just a very important win in the scheme of things. And if you saw the post-game celebration with Raul and his family and all that sort of stuff, how loud the few Suns supporters there, because there weren't that many.
No, there wouldn't have been.
They still got around them and they were still happy, you know what I mean? So, yeah, this was character. This was the start of the franchise sort of stuff. So, yeah, as I said, as bitterly disappointing as it was for Freo, you can't help but to feel excited for a Suns team that just haven't got anything in their 10-plus year history.
As much as I wanted the meme of them missing finals by losing to the Bombers to happen, once they actually made it in, I was happy to root for them. Out of this game, I was happy with either team winning because, again, Freo have had this long history of not winning a grand final. They still haven't won their first one yet.
Yeah.
And then the Suns, being the latest team to have never made a final, let alone win one, they've just knocked two things off of their checklist like that. Like, they could, genuinely, they could go far. I think this team is very exciting and could be very lethal.
I actually think there's a lot of comparisons, and I apologize because I forget exactly which year, but I think it was the 2011 Freo Dockers. It was Mark Harvey. They made the finals. I think they won a final, lost it, and then obviously the controversy of them replacing him for Ross the Boss. They might have lost that finals, but either way, you know what I mean. It was just like a very young team. You could see where they were going. They started off by building their defense. Had a few solid up and coming players in the midfield. One of them being Nat Five back in the day,
Mm-hmm.
and a very sometimes creative forward line, but just seemed to do enough. And I think there's a lot of that in this Suns outfit. Obviously, they don't play such a dour and defensive game as what would be in Ross Lyon's tenure, but yeah, as I said, it'll be fun to see just exactly how far this Suns team can go. Not just this year, but for next year as well.
I think Dimmer would have spoken to the playing group in a very similar way he probably spoke to the Richmond playing group in 2017 when they made finals. And it'd be like, yeah, obviously you're going to be nervous. You have very little to no finals experience. There's like 3 players on the list and that played this game that have finals experience, being Noble, Rioli, and Ben Long. Um,
Hmm.
but like the coaching staff has a ton of experience. You got Rance there, you've got Grigg there, premiership players. And then obviously you
Hmm.
got Dimmer as well. And they would have just told the group, just embrace the feeling, let it wash over you,
Yeah,
and then use that energy to play your best game. And even if this is the only finals win that they get, even if they do lose to Brisbane this week, then they could still
hmm.
say that they have had a much better season than they've ever had before, and that they are in the right position to, whether it's like we're in 2026 or beyond, to potentially play in a grand final in the next couple of years, if not this year.
Yeah. And that's the thing that they brought Dimmer in for, because as I said, as much as I've had, I was a lot more skeptical at the start of the year until I started believing a bit heavily on how far or how much the Gold Coast Suns were going to take from Dimmer. And he still does a few things that annoy me, mind you, but like, if this game was a difference, it's not just a difference with the Suns. I'll say it's a difference between the Dimmer that coached a team that lost 3 elimination finals in a row
Look, the 2015
versus
one
the
we can
Suns.
blame on the shoddy AFL system. I still stand by that.
Well, you can if you want, but they still lost either way. But as I said, compare this to a Gold Coast team that is still relative, amount of inexperience coming from pretty terrible years. You just win straight away.
I mean, it's the fact that they have an he's an elite coach. That's the reality of it. And they have such a stacked amount of players who just needed the right kind of guidance. And
Yeah.
you put miracles together.
Yeah, as I said, it still amazes me that Brain Fiorini, who I thought could have been delisted in like 2018, like he's starting to see, and I don't think he's like going to be that important player in like the long term future, but you know what I mean? It's like he has moments and you're like, yeah, this is like sort of where he should have been going in his career instead of just faffing around. Lockie Weller, I know he's a bit different, but obviously coming from injuries, looked like a bit of a lost player, a bit of a meme, Oh, they traded the second pick that turned into Andrew Bayshaw. He still had a fantastic game, mind you.
He did.
You know what I mean? Like this could have been like an example of a bit of regret from that sort of trade and that sort of era. But even he had some fairly good moments on that outside. As I said, on the outside, GWS just looked far better than the Dockers. He pretty much had not much. That's another problem with them. O'Driscoll, Frederick, when he came up, just couldn't offer all that much. So, yeah, as I said, I wouldn't have imagined that the Suns of all teams would beat any team that made the finals on the outside. And look, here we are. They've improved the worst and by far the worst aspect of their team in a finals.
Yeah. It's it's crazy that we can now actually talk about the Suns as a potential premiership threat. Like it doesn't feel right.
Oh, I wouldn't say that.
Uh,
I don't think that far,
they they
but
they're getting there.
I could make a prelim.
They could definitely make a
The
prelim.
lines look
Consider
shaky.
we're going to talk about it not in in the next 10 minutes, honestly.
Yeah,
But like the fact that like only a couple of weeks ago they played Brisbane in the last Q Clash and beat them shows that
yeah,
there's definitely a lot to play for this week. But before we do that, I'm going to jump over to our individuals, and I'm going to start with the second Connor to make it into this episode. Technically three if I count myself. In Connor Buderick. He was very effective up forward, slotting 2 goals from 10 disposals, 3 score involvements, 6 tackles with 4 of them inside 50, and 14 pressure acts. Veteran Took Miller was clean with the ball in the midfield, finishing with 18 disposals, all of them effective, equating to 100% efficiency. Don't see that very often coming through a midfield system.
No, especially
Five
such a hard worker.
5 contested possessions, 4 marks, 3 clearances, 5 score involvements, 11 tackles, 29 pressure acts, and 304 meters gained. And captain Noah Anderson absolutely tore up that midfield, collecting 32 disposals, 13 contested possessions, 4 marks, 8 inside 50, 6 clearances, 2 behinds, 11 score involvements, 3 tackles, 29 pressure acts, 10 ground ball gets, and 753 meters gained. On the Fremantle side of things, Caleb Sarong was phenomenal as well, finishing with 35 touches, 21 contested, 11 inside 50s, 13 clearances, 2 goal assists, 6 score involvements, 9 tackles, 28 pressure acts, 10 ground ball gets, and 702 meters gained. And captain Alex Pearce stood tall, collecting 13 disposals, 11 of them effective, equating to 84.6% efficiency, 10 contested possessions, 10 intercepts, 8 marks, with 4 of them being contested, and 6 of them being intercept, 2 score involvements, 8 1%ers, and 5 spoils. And that, with no injuries and no MRO reports from this game, wraps up week 1 of the finals. But we're not done yet, because we have brought back our coast-to-coast MVP votes from each game.
Yeah, and we've sort of merged it to how we've sort of approached the rundowns this year, and we're just saying, hey, why don't we just both vote? You know, as I said, in the Gary Ayers, you got 2 coaches' votings, which are added up, and we're pretty much, we could coach a football team, couldn't we, Blazy?
We could give it a shot. Let's go find a lower league team and we'll take over.
Yeah, take him. You know, we'll bring relegation and promotion into the league, and we'll rise up the ranks, like a Wrexham story. So
we'll make it
yeah.
work.
So we decided both, and it's of course I would say fairly interesting. We've matched on a lot of things. A few players that a few of us have rated strongly, and others have not. And I would say that there's only one very interesting game. We've had a look at the Gary Ayers medal voting. We'll probably do a big list at the end of the season, like we did last year, going through the votes. But yeah, the GWS Hawthorn game, we did not get much overlap anywhere. Not between us together, not between us and the Gary Ayers, and obviously between
the one thing we did is that we did have majority Hawthorn players. Probably a sign of the fact that Hawthorn did win. But the fact that the only GWS player we both had was Tom Green, is definitely a more interesting factor. In fact, that's the only player we had together for that game.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, do you want to just run through them, and we'll start. I'll go mine, and then you go yours.
Yeah, we'll go game by game. But if you want to start first with Thursday nights,
yeah. So with 5 votes, Adelaide and Collingwood, I gave it to Darcy Moore. His intercepting was elite, and he broke down a lot of Adelaide's forward chains. I think that was part of the reason why they couldn't score. And to me, I think that was the most important player and the important bit of structure for Collingwood, so I gave him the most. Jamie Elliott, number 2, pretty simple. Kicked a lot of goals and was very exciting up forward when they just needed someone to be the live wire and converter. He did that role. Without it, I think this game is a lot closer. So I gave him 4 votes. Darcy Cameron, I gave 3 votes to. He was just so useful around the ground, intercepting on the ground as a collecting ruck, and against 2, 1 volume ruck, 1 creative ruck, pretty much limited the impact of Adelaide and their ability to get clearances. Talking about that, a very two-way game. Jordan De Goey, not only was he fantastic going forward with the ball, he was excellent providing pressure, and I think he was the most important midfield. I don't think there was a lot of midfielders that could have been in there. I just think a lot of this game was dictated by defense, which is why I've skewed my votes towards defenders, and that sums up with my 1 vote going to coast legend Billy Frampton. Without him locking the clamps down, I do not think that Moore would be able to go and play his game. So he was fantastic as a 1-on-1 defender, a lot of good spoils, and yeah, deserving of the one vote. Wasn't just mean factor, it was quite a defensive effort.
Agreed. On my side of things, I actually gave Jordan De Goey my 5 votes. I thought just his work in that midfield, be able to play two ways, played a lot more defensive game than he normally does, was very solid of him, especially the fact he was also still able to push forward and score effectively. Was very, very good. Something we haven't really seen efficiently from him in a while. But again, finals can often be a different beast, and it brought out the best in him in this case. My 4 votes goes to Ned Long. I think his tackling pressure in that midfield is elite. He's been one of their best all season long, alongside Jack Crisp. So he's been pretty solid in that regard. Yes, thank you. I forget Ned Long and Ben Long are both still in finals, so
Yeah,
probably best to
just a bit.
differentiate. My 3 votes actually goes to Alex Neil-Bullen. I thought he was pretty much Adelaide's best on ground and deserved the recognition. I think he did enough work both ways. He was very good with his pressure as well, as I had mentioned in our breakdown. My 2 votes goes to Nick Dacos. I thought his ball movement was very efficient and very clean. And despite the fact that, he gets a lot of his praise from the media anyway, I thought he was deserving of some recognition here, even though we hadn't really talked about him at all in our breakdown. And then my number one, for pretty much the same reasons, is Big Billy Frampton. Again, was an excellent one-on-one shutdown. Did a lot of work in crushing packs and just getting rid of the ball from any potential marks that were very dangerous up forward, and allowed Darcy Moore to have that freedom, and allowed Josh Dacos as well to even play with a lot of the crumbing that he was able to provide in terms of rebounding back into the midfield.
Yeah, exactly. And, as I said, it's one of those games, and I know we had a bit of a differential, but yeah, there was just a lot of players that, would have been worthy of like 1 or 2 votes. As I said, I was considering Long as well. Dacos. There's another one. I mean, Maynard, he had a fantastic game, but I was like, well, I don't
Raynor
want
was
to
very
overload
good as well.
defenders.
Like, there was just so many players.
Rayner, exactly. Steele kicked 3 goals. Not quite as involved. Josh Dacos, I thought too, was a very balanced game as well. Like, he was a good behind pressure, as well as distributing a bit. So, yeah, as I said, just a lot of solid players. And I think Phil thought would have been the only other Adelaide considered for votes.
Yeah, I was very much considering him as well, but I think just because of how much Adelaide's midfield struggled, I think Neil-Bullen was kind of the standout in terms of what he ended up helping Adelaide being able to accomplish, which obviously ends up being not much because it wasn't a win, but it was a worthwhile performance.
I feel like Neil-Bullen was a bit more let down by the lack of options and presentation up forward rather than his efforts.
Agreed. All right, do you want to start us off with our Friday night game?
Yes, let's. So in the 5 votes, I've got Oliver Dempsey. He was all over the grounds, playing absolutely fantastic. It wasn't just the I think it was a couple, maybe 3 goals he kicked. I can't quite remember, but yeah, as I said, it was just the difference in the outside game versus the Lions. 4, again, another outside player, Max Holmes. Fantastic off halfback, took a few inside clearances, and yeah, as I said, just a very balanced player. Broke Brisbane's lines a lot of the times. 3rd, again, sort of in that middle region again. As I said, that's where Geelong got most of their dominance. Tom Stewart, again, it's funny because he hasn't had as much like heavy intercept marking game for a while, but this one sort of reminded me a bit of peak Tom Stewart. Where, as I said, he is pushed up a bit more, sort of not as deep as in between halfback and the midfield. But as I said, he still uses that position knowledge and he's able to generate the other way, and also kicked a very nice goal. Tom Atkins. Tom Atkins. I was going to say Rory. As we mentioned before, excellent pressure. He was part of the reasons why, it wasn't just Ocean Mullin locking down the clamps on McCluggage. As I said, it was just hard to get clearances out, and Atkins was a good reason for that, and still had a lot of offense going the other way. And finally, for me, Darcy Fort. He was working hard all night, and in a midfield that struggled. He did try his best to provide a few clearances, provide a few marking targets around the ground, and I just think for such a persistent effort, should be rewarded with a vote.
Agreed. On my side of things, I gave my 5 votes to Mark Blicavs. I thought, again, as I mentioned in our break, I thought that's one of the best performances I've ever seen him play. He was doing absolutely everything around the ground, and then some. As an aging ruck is very impressive to see. Max Holmes got my 4 votes, pretty much the exact same reasons as Cyrek. I don't have to say too much more on that one. My 3 votes though went to Tom Atkins. Again, I think just his elite pressure work, his elite ball movement off of that halfback and through that wing side has been phenomenal all season long. This game especially. My 2 votes actually went to Josh Dunkley. I think he was really, really solid. Played similar to like a Ned Long or a Jordan De Goey kind of role in this game, and had to step up when Neil went out as well. I thought he was fantastic. And then my number 1 also went to Darcy Fort for a really, really impressive ruck game, despite despite some of the issues that like it took him a little bit in some areas to really get going, but for the most part had a really solid, well-rounded game, as we had said in our breakdown.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just one of those things where, it's sort of, yeah, it's sort of so weird, this game, where, as I said, you just expect so many different players for Brisbane to stand out, but they really, as I said, it was really the back half and a few of the midfielders that did well, and just the rest just seemed very unimpactful, which was very not Brisbane.
Yeah,
Whereas
it didn't
Geelong
feel
had
like
a lot of,
Brisbane at all.
yeah, whereas Geelong had a lot of very big performers. Yeah, I also thought Zorko was good. I had a few times where he coughed the ball up, especially that one goal where it was off the smother. But he was trying his hardest to be creative, so I just give him a little honourable mention. Like, he would be the only other line I would consider.
Yeah, that's very fair. All right, you want to start us off with our first elimination game?
Yeah, well, just like Darcy Moore, I think James Sicily dominated a lot in terms of both positioning, the inability for the Giants to get inside 50s. I think he just controlled so much of that ground, where he was not only just having good stats, getting involved, and obviously shutting down, the players he was on, which was Callum Brown and occasionally Riccardi. He was just, he was making defenders. He was making the Giants try and avoid him. Very good effort. Jack Ginnivan, I gave 4 votes. He was pretty good at stoppages and kicked a few really nice goals. He was probably one of the most exciting Hawthorn players. In terms of free votes, I gave it to Jai Newcomb. He had 1 quiet quarter and the rest was absolute dominance. The quiet quarter being the third. So, as I said, that's why I put him below Ginnivan. But otherwise, he was absolutely sublime. Talking about that third quarter, that will influence my next 2 votes, one of which had the more rounded game, Tom Green. He was pretty much fantastic. Solid performer, but lifted another level in that third quarter. And finally, I will say that a bit of this, I think in finals, you can skew more towards moments and bit of impact. And I don't think they get back into this game without this. Even though he was a sub, Josh Kelly, that third quarter, broke them into the game. And they just wouldn't have been a shot without him. So I think that's important enough for a vote.
Agreed. Do I think that Kelly maybe shouldn't have started as a sub? Potentially not. But the fact that he was able to come in and have an immediate impact in that quarter,
Yeah.
and give them that chance, shows that he still has some immense talent for that midfield.
Yeah, and I think I think from what I heard, because I heard a bit of the pre-conversation with Kingsley, is I think they were saying ideally they wouldn't have put Kelly on the first up. I think if this was a prelim, I don't think he would have played, because I think they're still a bit concerned about his health. So
True.
The fact that he just came on raring to go means that, as I said, he still has a lot to give. I understand them being cautious, and obviously they've got no reason to be cautious from now on because they're not playing anymore. You know what? It probably says that it was worth having him break in case of emergency player.
Yeah, I think I agree with that. My side of things, I gave my 5 votes to Jarman Impey. I thought the fact he was able to break lines and move the ball incredibly well across halfback to the midfield and even pushing up forward a little bit was outstanding. His transition game, his work rate with alongside his other midfielders has been phenomenal all season long, honestly. Especially when players like Massimo D'Ambrosio have had a quieter season compared to last year. He's been able to step up, and it's been really really good to see for Hawthorn. My 4 votes goes to Connor McDonald. Again, the fact that he was able to push up and score efficiently, as well as have a really strong pressure and tackling game, that kind of says a lot, especially when the Hawthorn midfield has been where they've been lacking quite a bit in the past month or so, at least. Again, technically it's been all season long, but it has been a little bit more noticeable coming up to finals. He's done phenomenal work this game. My 3 votes goes to Tom Green. Again, outstanding performance from him for the Giants. If it wasn't for him, for Josh Kelly, like they wouldn't have had that third quarter performance. Mabior Chalk gets my 2 votes. He did some fantastic work. Again, great forward pressure game. Did really solid work in the ruck, and again had kicked 2 very important goals. And then my number 1 goes to Blake Hardwick, who whilst had a little bit of a quieter performance compared to your Barras, your Battle, your Sicily, I think he stood out. He did a really, really solid work as a one-on-one defender and was able to take a lot of pack marks and take a lot of pressure out of the other defenders to allow them to play a little bit more freely as well.
Yeah, I do actually heavily agree with that. I was a bit like, it's a bit, you know what I mean? It's like one of those ones I was like, I was going to give him the vote if I didn't have that, feeling to give it to Kelly just for all that moment.
No, Kelly was definitely a worthwhile vote. Like he was, if it wasn't for him,
it's like Hardwick, 14 intercepts, 20 possessions. You know, that's a person that's hunting to prevent a lot of entries. And you think, as I said, if it wasn't for that, GWS would have got more entries than the 72.
Especially when you're coming up against players like Hogan, Riccardi, Cadman, Stringer.
Yeah.
Like elite, Stringer being mid forward, but the rest of them being elite forward players is a tough ask. But Hardwick, Sicily, Barras, Battle all did phenomenal work down there, and everyone else, of course. But you want to go to our last game?
Oh, yeah. Okay, sure. So this one, obviously being a 1-point margin, is very hard to separate. So I gave my 5 votes to a loser, but not in effort. It is, I was about to say Jai Sarong, Caleb Sarong for Fremantle. His clearances were absolutely fantastic. It was one of those ones where some of his clearances were a bit dumpy handballs to just get the ball going, but he still had a lot of good score involvements and was very prolific. Talking about it, pretty much the same boat, maybe a bit cleaner, but probably not as hard nut. It was obviously Noah Anderson, absolutely fantastic, and not really too much between Sarong and Anderson, in my opinion. I think too clearly, at least clearly the best midfielders in the performances for this round. Third, I've got Andrew Collins. I thought he was very solid in defense. He pretty much dictated the fact that it wasn't going to be easy for Freo to get their set marking game going, and for 3 quarters, that was pretty much the case. Talking about, and again, this is a bit more because it was his last quarter that elevated him up to 2 votes. It was Alex Pearce. He just did a solid vote, a solid game 1-on-1 against King, and then in the last quarter, sort of got absolutely unleashed. And as I said, in a game where probably some medium, it was a very mixed bag in the Freo back 6. Some very good performances, some mediocre, but Pearce edge towards a phenomenal game. And then I gave 1 vote to Alex Davies, and I know probably, again, Brayshaw probably could have picked this up, but I thought some of his ground ball efforts were absolutely fantastic, and I think at times allowed other players to get on the so I actually think that they wouldn't have had as much midfield cohesion if Alex Davies didn't pick up the way he did in this game. I think it's one of the best games he's played in his career.
which isn't saying much because I'm pretty sure he's still under 100 games. So he's definitely got a lot more, like, a
Yeah, he's had a couple of really good
ton to
games, but
give.
yeah, this one just stood out for me.
On
Very
my,
hard nut performance.
yeah, agree. On my end, I gave my 5 votes to Noah Anderson again, as I said in the breakdown. Phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal from him. That was a hard captain's game from him, and he's had a ton of those all season
Hmm.
long already. Um, my 4 votes went to Jared Witts. Being the lone ruckman for a lot of this season, he's had to do a lot for the Suns, and he stood incredibly tall against the terrifying duo of Sean Darcy and Luke Jackson for Fremantle. He did very, very well. I gave my 3 votes to Bodie Hewland. I thought, despite being maybe not the biggest of highlights in the Suns' defense, I thought he was doing really well off of intercept. He was doing ball movement very well, able to get smooth connections to his running defenders and his midfielders as well. My 2 votes went to Caleb Sarong. Again, outstanding performance for him. I was very tempted to give him the 3, um, but I kind of did favor the winning margin a little bit more in my ones. And then my number one also
One
went to
point.
Alex Pierce
There's 1 point.
for that fourth quarter performance. Like, again, he was still
Yeah.
incredibly solid. Like, or if it wasn't for the fact that Ben King did kick 5, he probably would have gotten a higher vote from me. But still, a solid captain's game in that fourth quarter. Just
It
wasn't.
wasn't 5 behinds, it was 3 behinds, I should say.
Allowing Ben King to still at least get so many scores is the more impactful deficit. But still.
I put a lot of pressure on him, yeah.
So that is all of our votes for week 1. So as far as I'm aware, our top 3 currently sits with Noah Anderson on 9, Max Holmes on 8, and Jordan DeGoey on 7. So
Yep.
that now brings us to week 2, our semi-finals, and we now go over to the Adelaide Oval for a Friday night blockbuster between the Crows and the Hawks.
Now, it's very popular to always back in the elimination winners because obviously one's coming off a win and one's coming off a loss. And in this case, as much as they are eighth and it goes against all my finals convention, I think Hawks just can do it with what I've seen. Again, they know how to control ball movement. Adelaide love to intercept, so they can probably control a bit there. Their forward line's very creative, so I don't, again, like Collingwood, I don't think their total defense is going to have as big an advantage. It's really going to be, can Hawthorn bring it like Collingwood did to that Adelaide back six? Because it's not just going to be about pure defense. Because if they do, just get their spoils and all that, you always forget, your Ben King still down there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I was going to almost say Isaac Rankin before I remembered, but you know what I mean? They've still got some good ground level players. Alex Neil-Bullen, they might push him forward a bit more depending on what they want to do on the outside.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so as I said, it's important for Hawthorn to be aggressive with their intercept marking. They've got enough players to do it. And if they can do that, I would back them in. Because as I said, it's a pretty neutral game in the midfield. You wouldn't exactly pick one over the other. And that's both inside or out. Both teams are fantastic outside midfield. Both inside midfields can get the job done. Maybe a bit spotty at times, but it just makes it such an even game.
Yeah, it does. Again, we've seen Adelaide's defense be absolutely elite, but I don't know how, and I don't know how that's going to match up entirely with how Hawthorn have been able to reshift their forward line. It could be very interesting one-on-one matchups across the board. But on the flip side, Hawthorn's defense is outstanding. Again, in that elimination final the week before, they were able to show exactly why Barras and Battle were worth the money, and hopefully they can take it up to Adelaide's talls, specifically, obviously Walker and Thilthorpe. They have been very lethal over the past month, and you got to try and put a stop to that if you're gonna really succeed. Yeah. But again, that midfield battle very even. Even obviously without Rankin, Rankin might actually be a difference maker if he was in, but without him, it's definitely a lot more even Stevens in this case.
And it is very interesting because this is a matchup that we've got a fair bit of data on because they have played twice this year. The first one was at UTAS. It was a dour affair where Hawthorn won 3 points, 6-11, 40-75, 14-44.
That was a very
And
windy game,
Adelaide
wasn't it?
went,
Or one of the few down there.
yeah, I don't think it was I think it was like a weird cross breeze, and I think there may have been a bit of rain by memory, but yeah, it was just a tough game to watch. But on the second one, it was much more offensively driven. Adelaide getting the wood over Hawthorn, 5-11, 101 to 39-87. But by memory, Adelaide had a fair bit of control for periods. But yeah, as I said, it's going to be a bit weird because, yeah, I said in that game, therefore it's got a bit more involved. Riley Philthorpe had a really good game. So, as I said, it's going to be interesting because also good to say, 3-goal margin. Well, if Hawthorn had 3 goals less on Adelaide, they would have won. And Isaac Rankin kicked 3 goals in that game. So, obviously, a bit of a false equivalence.
But there is definitely some weight to
that's
the
the
idea that
storyline.
Rankin could be a difference maker here.
Well, as I said, that burst midfielder in the centre is probably what Adelaide could need to get that edge over Hawthorn's midfield. Otherwise, as I said, if it's going to be like a little crunch battle, Hawthorn do set up well outside the contest, which is why I'm going to, as I said, I'm not really doing tipping in the finals.
No, neither am I.
I would tip Hawthorn in this. I would take a punt there.
So would I. I think I'm definitely leaning towards a Hawthorn on this one. Granted, I would like Adelaide to go out in straight sets because of the Rankin stuff anyway, but
Yeah.
Even if that wasn't the case,
I mean,
I think
also
Hawthorn.
have my reasons.
Yeah,
well.
I know you do. But even if that wasn't the case, I think Hawthorn just look better. I think they match up better in most areas, and hopefully they could do it. Hopefully they can set their sights on another prelim.
Yeah, and weirdly enough, I think if GWS won, I would have favoured Adelaide. I know that sounds weird, but yeah, as I said, I think it's just one of those ones where Hawks are just a very tough matchup for a few teams, and Adelaide might be one of them. As I said, Collingwood's also the other one that might be a bit interesting, so we'll wait and see. But obviously, the winner of this one goes to face Geelong in the prelim, which will also be hard.
Yeah, that's gonna be a hard ask for either team. But
on the flip side,
speaking of hard ask, our third Q clash of the season, and it's in a final at the Gabba with the Lions obviously hosting the Suns. Saturday night, huge blockbuster game. I honestly this could still go either way.
Yeah. Yeah, it's so weird because we've said, as I said, Brisbane, they're the older brother sort of thing. They tend to get the job done against the Suns, and you would imagine so, this year again. But it was just how emphatically the Suns won in the last key clash that are I'm still going to tip Brisbane, mind you, but geez. It's so hard not to just fall into that trap of liking the two elimination winners. You know what I mean? I know that's normally folly, but you just think that
Yeah, the interesting thing that I read about this game is that the last Q cash they played where the Suns won, the Suns didn't have Rioli out there. They didn't have Noble out there either. They were both out either with injury or suspension. Rioli was injury. I think Noble might have been a potential suspension. I can't remember. But now they have both of those players back, and the Lions don't have. They lose, Lockie Neal. They lose Eric Hipwood. Who both played in that last Q clash. So again, these ins and outs could potentially be that huge difference maker.
Yeah, exactly. And I think because I just want to check because I vaguely remember the Suns got a lot of clearance points in that game. I think it would have been over 70 odd points. I'm just trying to check what round was that. It was 20.
Yeah, it was 2021. I think.
Just give me a second.
No, you could.
Yeah, so where is it? Gold Coast was Brisbane. So yeah, just going to that game. Where is it? Yeah. Suns got 13-6-84 from stoppage to 3-5-23. So Geelong got the dominance from stoppage. They had this performance last time. I don't think it's just foolish belief to want to back in the Suns, but as I said, part of me just thinks it's a sensible thing to say, Brisbane, they're the
I,
finals experienced team.
yeah,
We saw Gold Coast almost bottle it in, trying to protect the lead.
I know.
I think we're just going to see a Brisbane patch of dominance somewhere.
Yeah, I know. I also know that like the crowd clearly definitely didn't make that huge of an impact, being a one-sided crowd over at Optus for the Suns. But I think this one could be a little bit more different because it's an existing rivalry again against basically your big brother side, and like
Yeah,
it's gonna be a packed Gabba, potentially a full sell. It's gonna be a sold out game anyway, but like a full sellout game
yeah,
for how important this is. Like that
yeah.
could be a kind of pressure that might get to them in this case. But I
Mm.
want to hope. I want to back the Suns in on this one.
Yeah, and I think it's also, avenue to goal too, because I think, while I said Suns do get a lot of movement from their midfield, is that their forward line efficiency could have been a bit better.
Hmm.
So that's one thing where Brisbane probably could get uh, a bit more chance. You know what I mean? Like it gives them a bit more chance of rebound, unlike Geelong, who were generally scoring and they got it inside 50. So, as I said, might allow Brisbane to get a bit more running carry from the back half too, where their outside midfield are a lot better than the Suns, you would say on paper. As I
Yeah,
said, depending on where Zach Bailey goes this week and who they decide to replace Neil with.
yeah. It's definitely a tall ask to figure out who is going to come in for Lockie Neal. Um, but that wraps up episode 75 of the podcast. Thank you all so much for coming to hang out, coming to watch, coming to listen, coming to like and subscribe on YouTube and Spotify. Leave a comment as well, please. We love the engagement. Please go check out our socials as well for all of other information and things of that nature. We're very much looking forward to these games, although there's a fair chance that I will 100% miss Friday night's game because of my birthday dinner. No, sorry, because it's my birthday and I'm doing that collab stream. And there is a more likely chance that I will definitely miss Saturday's game because of my birthday dinner. So this might not be a good week for me, body wise. Uh,
That's all right. Just give me your votes. I'll do it for you.
I'll where I'm having dinner. They do often have like TVs and stuff on with the footy, so
Yeah,
I will be able to keep an eye on it at the very least. But obviously
yeah.
afterwards, I will have to watch highlights and things of that nature for what I
Yeah.
do miss because I
Honestly, underrated.
I
Like
might just
going
I might
to,
just sneakily just leave it on my phone because I do really want to watch this
yeah,
Q clash.
yeah, exactly. And I think that's underrated anyway. Like just being able to, it's like, it's your birthday, you have to feel like you go out, but you're still like doing what you want to watch, which is sitting at home watching the sport. I've been very lucky to watch a few finals on my birthday, so yeah, as I said, fingers crossed you'll be able to watch what you want. And yeah, as I said, I think I'm doing stuff this weekend, but I should be pretty good for both the games. So I am very excited to sit down and watch.
Excellent. I'm hoping to still be streaming a little bit this week. It's going to be a little bit more sporadic just because of all the stuff that I'm working on with all my other little projects and things of that nature. But that's okay. If I do end up streaming, you'll see it on my socials. So please go check them out. But otherwise, that does it for us. So thank you all so much once again, and we will see you all next week for episode 76, where we will wrap up the semi-finals and preview the preliminaries. So until then, love you all and leave you
Mm.
all, and take care.